All right, good morning. We're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you for joining us today. This is the second webinar in the new Pacific webinar series around thought leadership. So thank you for joining this morning. Today's concept and topic is going to be on causal impact. We plan to introduce you to the concept, which is using proprietary software with the practice of causal impact. We've developed a way to accurately determine the impact at scale of our clients' marketing programs and business. This offering allows our clients to diagnose, forecast, and accurately measure business performances based on the impact of certain events. My name is Megan Barden. I'll be your moderator today. I'm the Director of Client Services at Pacific. So today we plan to have around 40 to 45 minutes of presentation content for you today, after which we'll head into the Q&A portion of the presentation. At any time during the presentation, feel free to add your Q&A questions to the Q&A box at the bottom of your Zoom screen. We'll go ahead and read those through as soon as the presenters are done presenting. After this session, you will be receiving a follow-up email with the recording of the presentation, as well as an opportunity to connect with us one-on-one for more information surrounding causal impact or any of the other services that Pacific offers. During this session, you should be automatically Zoomed, so don't worry about having to mute yourself during the session.
Okay, thanks, Megan. Hi, everyone. I'm Jamie Boehner, and I'm the director of our strategy team here at Pacific. And I just wanted to quickly introduce the company for those of you who don't know us, so you have a little bit of context about where all of this came from. So Pacific was founded in 2012. We're a global brand and performance marketing agency, and we support enterprise-level brands across various industries such as education, healthcare, travel, hospitality, e-commerce, and energy. We started in search marketing, but since then we've expanded into a lot of both digital and traditional marketing tactics and teams. And that's important for you to know today because the methodology you're going to see working with the brands we work with, having both digital campaigns, outdoor media campaigns, having a lot of events in the world happening, or Google algorithm updates that could affect our clients' business. We really needed a methodology that could give us the confidence to measure what was going on and forecast and predict success and failure. And that's what our team is going to share with you today. And just to give you a little bit more context on why that's important, here's some examples of some of the clients we work with. So as you can see, clients like Square, Expedia, Hotwire, these are big enterprise brands and they're operating at a global scale. So having confidence in measuring what you're actually be able to do for them, or having confidence in measuring the impact of an event, is crucial for their business. And that's what our team is going to walk you through, how we were able to do that using causal impact methodology. So let me go ahead and introduce our team for you today. Today we have with us Joshua Slodky, our Director of Analytics. Josh is a true data-driven marketer, has been specializing in the digital marketing field for over 15 years. He's held roles across digital marketing, execution, and analytics, both in-house for enterprise brands and on the agency side, working with brands like Intel, TurboTax, Petco, and Expedia to make the most out of their marketing investments. Josh has a deep level of experience in search engine marketing, cross-channel attribution, and marketing analytics. And then also with us today, we have our lead marketing analyst, Eric Blank. Eric comes from a non-traditional analytics background, having held operations-based roles within various music and media organizations such as Sony DADC and Cumulus Media. Eric's roles involve single-handedly streamlining various operations many organizations would devote a team to handle through what he often refers to as MacGyvering his way to establishing a process. And his work here at Pacific with us has transformed how our team approaches testing for search marketing, as well as how we can consult our clients and how they can improve their own analytics processes. So with that, I'll let Josh and Eric take it away.
Thanks, Jamie. So to kick it off, why you're here. I think I'll just start. You're either going to be a business leader and you're looking to introduce a more data-driven approach to how your teams operate, or you're a marketing lead or subject matter expert, and you've heard all the buzzwords around data science, predictive analytics, machine learning, algorithms, and are struggling to see how these can be applied in your day-to-day business. I'm Joshua Slodky, and work with our lead analyst, Eric Blank. We're here to share this innovative way of applying data science in the real world and show you how we've used this for our clients and to integrate analytics into the day-to-day operations. So right now, we're all facing a massive impact on our business. I don't think there's anybody who's not being impacted with what's going on around the world. So it's especially important right now for business owners and leaders and department leads all to really understand the level of impact that things have on their business. And with that, it allows us to manage for that. And that's one of the applications of causal impact that we'll be sharing today. So we're living in turbulent times, of course, but that market turbulence can come in all forms. And we all need to manage through that change, which means you need to embrace and understand those changes. In the competitive marketplace, we're all constantly keeping the wolves at bay. With new players joining the fray and with aggregators really stepping in and disrupting a lot of marketplaces, think travel, storage, and shopping networks such as Amazon, et cetera. It's more important than ever for us to really understand what the impact of a competitor entering or even leaving the marketplace will have on your business. Natural disaster is, well, in today's environment, is a good example of another instance of really determining what the impact of this is, and also being able to measure your recovery timeframe. When I was working with a online tool vendor, CPO Commerce, the question was posed, what was the impact of a hurricane on our business in Houston? And the challenge to that was, if you think about online tools and generators, there are segments of the business that were showing positive impact, while others were showing challenges just by the natural depression of their business. Back then, when I had that question posed to me, I really wish I had causal impact in front of me, because that's the perfect application of understanding the impact. And then it's quite simple. Google is helping consumers discover your site every day. And they also don't make it easy. With around 20 or 30% of your site traffic reliant on organic search, it's vital that you're constantly up to speed on how to maintain and grow your presence. But with 4 or 5, even more algorithm updates taking place every year, Google makes this a constantly moving target. And we'll show you how we help our clients stay up to speed and manage to optimize their experience within Google. And causal impact is our approach. Now, the impacts on your business aren't exclusively things that are out of your control. Sometimes you're going to do things to yourself for good or bad. And this approach to measurement really lets you take the guesswork out of determining the true scope of impact, whether it be marketing initiatives within some of the challenges in measuring marketing, especially out of home, rebranding, et cetera. It's really difficult to measure the impact when you don't have the concept of a holdout. So it's when you really want to have the greatest impact, you really need to lean into these types of initiatives. Another example, when I was with TurboTax, their first Super Bowl ad was being produced, and this is a massive event, and there was no historical perspective for measuring this. And that's another perfect example of how this methodology of measurement could be applied. And just on a side note, on the marketing side, the future of the removal of third-party cookies within browsers and tracking, that's going to be a huge challenge for anybody in the display marketing space. And I think that's we're going to be really looking for new ways of measuring those impacts. When it comes to your technology, this is a constant battle internally, the warring between the creative and the customer experience and the SEO teams. And whether it be a website migration or just the ongoing enhancements that are always taking place. At Pacific, we believe that the new SEO is the integration of UX, content, and technology. However, that communication does not always take place. and can result in the loss of unintended consequences, wreaking havoc on performance. And all of these are areas of application that we're leaning in with the causal impact measurement methodology, but we've also wrapped it into our proprietary approach so that we can be most effective and speed the time to answers for our clients. So, quick introduction of causal impact. So, this caught our attention when we were really looking into a more efficient way of measuring SEO testing. And as you may know, Google doesn't let you test when it comes to SEO. You'll actually get penalized if you try to change the experience and do more of an A/B split test where you're changing the experience that Google sees. So this is a huge challenge for anybody in the SEO world. And that was our first approach, was trying to find an efficient way to measure the impact of SEO testing as well as algorithm impacts. And when Eric came across this methodology, which has been around since, I believe, 2015, and we quickly realized the far-reaching potential of this application beyond just the initial approach that we were focusing on, which was our SEO testing. So, and we'll discuss a little bit more on those applications for it. So just what is causal impact? And it was, at its base, it's an open source statistical package for the RStudio, which is the open source stats system. It was developed by Google. The data scientists at Google developed this, and with the goal of determining the impact of an event or change by answering the question, what would have happened had the event not occurred? And our hypothesis is that Google needed to do this type of analysis because they're still not sure what their search engine algorithms are doing, because there's so much machine learning going on, and they needed an effective way of measuring this. And so that's really where it came from. And since the initial discovery by us, Pacific is the discovery group after all, this method of analysis has been adopted not just by us for our clients, but also a lot of other large brands, including Expedia, for monitoring their SEO performance and impact of algorithm updates. Now, Eric and I are, our primary functions are business analysts. So today we are not going to be going into the statistical side of things. We are business analysts. So our goal is always tied to driving actionable insights for our clients and for our teams at speed. So we're going to be sharing today from the kind of the business perspective, and we won't be going into the rabbit hole of whether Bayesian time series analysis is better than multiple regression. We're going to try to keep this at a level where you as business leaders really can understand how this can be applied to improve your business. And at its base, to apply this, all you need is numerical data over time. And we'll get into that, and you'll see how this can apply. So the way causal impact works is it really starts with your seasonality. Most businesses have a consistent seasonality. They follow the same patterns year over year. And even during periods of significant growth or decline, this pattern remains constant. And this is a key component to how causal impact helps predict where your performance is going. The second component that causal impact leverages is trajectory. Basically, it's able to build an effective model taking into account your recent business performance, whether it be on an incline or decline. And this is a common factor that's missed when business users or analysts are trying to forecast, and they're simply leveraging the prior year data for that perspective. And with those two components, causal impact combines the seasonality with your trajectory and these are might be referred to later as covariates, to accurately predict the future of your business. Now, that sounds pretty good, and that was the one thing that really got me interested in how this application will work for us. And with this prediction, that actually acts as your synthetic control for you to test your actual performance. And a quick snapshot of what that looks like. In this case, that dotted line that's surrounded by the yellow is the prediction. And you can see that the seasonality of the prediction is following the solid line of your actuals. And that yellow area is the margin of error. So this very simple view, as we can see after that event date, we can see that our actual performance trended above not just the prediction, but it trended above that margin of error. And this gives us the confidence that this performance was not due to chance. So that's causal impact at a base level. And now I'm going to share just a couple of other applications that gave us additional confidence in how this methodology can be applied in a variety of fashions, and also confidence in the capabilities of this. So the first example, just a research study that we found, basically to analyze the impact of the emission scandal that Volkswagen had back in 2015, where Volkswagen admitted they had cheated the emissions testing process in the US. And the objective here was to measure the impact on their stock price. And in order to do that, they didn't just look at the Volkswagen stock prices from a historical and trajectory perspective. They added in additional stock prices of other auto brands that built into the covariate that created the prediction. And from this, it showed with confidence that the stock went down by 26% of the predicted value. And I'm going to call your attention to the lower right. If you've seen this snapshot, this is the raw output that comes from causal impact. So we've seen this around in other studies, but that's a summary of the output that Eric will be going into in more detail in a few moments. Another example, and this is more specific to the concept of SEO testing. This is an analysis that was conducted by Etsy. They recognized that true A/B testing wasn't possible, but if you can imagine the amount of categories and page types that Etsy has, they had an opportunity to leverage this method of analysis. And they did what we'll refer to later as a pseudo A/B test, where they did that same pre-post analysis across a wide variety of page groups, and where they only changed the experience for Google's crawlers for a segment of them. And when they analyzed this data, and Eric will go more into this in a moment on the pseudo A/B test, they were able to basically tell if causal impact where a page was not impacted did not show a change, and where the page was impacted, it showed a change, they can have confidence that that change was the reason for that, the change to the site was the reason for that performance improvement or decline. So these two case studies were really examples of why we pushed so heavily into this and building our platform around this methodology. And the current applications that we've identified for this came out of that initial discovery of how this system worked, breaking it into the components. We determined that the capabilities is, of course, within the testing space, but if you consider testing at scale, that really is the opportunity for diagnosis. And considering the question, what would you do if you could predict the future? And I think a challenge that we all face is accurately conducting predictions, and that's where we have applied this with our forecasting methodology. So now I'm going to hand it over to Eric, who will share more about how we apply this for our clients.
Cool. Thank you, Josh. Morning, everybody. So to start with, excuse me, Causal Impact actually has transformed the way in which Pacific approaches analytics, not just because of the ability to measure with applied data science like Josh had been mentioning, but also the way in which we actually manage the data going in and out of this model and its interpretation of the results. So through a lot of poking around and just some creative applications within our studio, we've actually developed and are constantly improving these three main applications that Josh had highlighted above here for all of our clients. To start with, we've been leveraging its capabilities in an effort to make recommendations guiding our clients' strategies and deliverables through proactive testing. We've also been utilizing it to uncover the unknown due to unexpected turbulences and trends in our diagnostic scan. And finally, we've actually leveraged the predictive capabilities to help determine where our clients' performance is headed with more accurate forecasting. We'll be going into a greater detail on a number of these going forward. And just to give you some ideas of how this can actually integrate very seamlessly into your own business as well. Again, as Jamie had mentioned, a lot of the deliverables that Pacific offers functions within search marketing and SEO. And many of the examples we're going to be running through this morning in this presentation actually focus on some of the work we've delivered on behalf of our clients. But we also want to demonstrate how this can be adjusted based on other applications in the business world, as long as there's numerical data across time. So when it comes to consulting our clients on how to best move the needle, we're constantly tasked with measuring the impact of the work we deliver without the luxury of having a control. What I mean by this is sometimes a change is made to a portion or even the entirety of our client's business without having the ability to insulate other parts of that change, from that change to serve as a comparison. This can actually make it very difficult to answer the question of, did this change help or hurt me? This can range from just about anything, whether it be from SEO testing, website launches, rebranding campaigns, viral social media posts, content launches, you name it. As our first application goes, Pacific has applied Causal Impact as our go-to methodology in testing measurement to determine if we've actually moved the needle. It's been used after an SEO test. It used to be after an SEO test was conducted, a pre-post analysis would be done through an SEO specialist eyeballing the performance trends and offering their opinion as results without taking into account seasonality combined with the trajectory of the performance. Causal Impact allows us to take the opinion out of that testing equation to get to the bottom line impact much faster. As Josh previously had mentioned, Causal Impact allows us to predict with confidence what performance would have been like had an optimization we deliberately made not occurred. We then take that prediction and compare it to what actually did happen to measure how much better or worse was the actual performance within a confidence interval, or in this case, that margin of error he was referring to in that chart, which we'll reference later on, the upper and lower threshold of that green shaded area. We typically apply Causal Impact in a pre-post scenario to measure performance before and after a change is made. But if our client's business can allow for it, we can also use Causal Impact in what Josh was referring to as a Pseudo AB Test, implementing a change to a particular test group and withholding a similar group concurrently during that test as a control. So as an example, let's say this is your digital landscape. We're going to reference this chart a number of times in a few different scenarios just to help demonstrate from a very high level how we're applying this and how to interpret or to show the potential gains in visibility and measurement that Causal Impact can allow. But to start with, we have at the highest level, we have our website, which is then broken down into 3 categories. And each of those categories breaks down into three different page types, which are consumed by 3 different device types. And in the case of a in the case of a pre-post scenario, we're basically going to be isolating one particular page type in this instance across all devices to run our tests. And this could be anything from a technical SEO perspective, if it's going to be something, let's say, like a sitemap change, maybe a title tag change, for instance, or it could be anything from the launching of a new page within your website too. So for our pre-post scenario, we're going to focus on this one segment. And just to kind of demonstrate how Pacific approaches testing, we usually start with some research to determine where within your business you can get the most bang for your buck based on your goals. So this segment can be, again, as small as an individual page, or we can actually zoom out and apply a change to the entire website or organization. The intention in this case is to improve performance through becoming more competitive in search marketing, improving customer experience for those that do come to your site, or simply increasing brand awareness. The goal is to make recommendations based on these test results to either apply successful changes to a larger population or implement further testing where needed in order to guide our clients' higher level strategies. Analyzing the before and after through causal impact allows us to measure with confidence any positive or negative change in performance with applied data science. So this is actually the full example of causal impact output that we get from each of the test reads that we perform. Now, again, as Josh had mentioned, it looks very similar to the raw output we use from that Volkswagen example. And for those of you that are familiar with this methodology, this will look very familiar. But for those of you that are not so familiar, we could actually end up devoting an entire webinar simply to the interpretation side of things. But for the sake of, for the interest in time, we're actually just going to be focusing on the bottom line impact highlighted below here. And again, this visual actually demonstrates here how much better or worse did what actually happened do compared to what would have happened had the change not taken place that we'll be analyzing against. So in this instance, the results of this pre-post test actually resulted in a 38% increase in traffic with significance. In our second scenario, again, this is based more on if you have enough websites within your business, or excuse me, web pages, I should say, within your business to allow for this. Pseudo AB test would be, in this case, a scenario where we take one particular page type and apply a test to it and withhold that change that was made to the test group on another page type and use that as our comparison. So in theory, just like how Etsy had demonstrated it, a successful pseudo AB test should show a change occurring in the test group, while the control group should have little to no change at all, thus giving us further confidence that the impact we've seen in the test group really was significant compared to the group that was withheld that change. So again, based on another example we had done on behalf of our clients, both of these visuals actually come from the same test. The chart on the left represents the test group, and the chart on the right represents our control group. And what we did was we analyzed these independently based on the same launch date across the same time period and analyzed them independently to measure the overall impact. Again, focusing on the bottom line impact to both of these results. The group on the left, sorry, next slide, please. The group on the left actually shows a 17% increase in overall click volume in this case, while the group on the right, though was trending downward, actually came back as being statistically insignificant and thus should be interpreted as having no change. So it's one thing to analyze all the ways in which we move the needle on behalf of our clients for segments we know we were making a change on deliberately. But what if something happens, let's just, for argument's sake, let's just call it an event for now. What if something happens and we don't know if there even was an impact or where there was an impact? Pacific's second application takes how we approach testing and dives deep to discover what you didn't know faster. As Josh had mentioned earlier, life doesn't wait for you to set up a test. In the case of your business, an event is something that may or may not have impacted you despite all your best efforts to avoid it. This could be both good or bad. So this is where Pacific's diagnostic analysis can be applied to help answer the questions of, were you impacted? Was it good or bad? How much were you impacted? And how deep do those impacts go? And depending on how large your organization is, this can be quite an undertaking to help answer those questions. So for the sake of this example, you've been hearing this quite a bit throughout this presentation so far, but we'll be focusing on Google's algorithm updates. Again, as Josh had mentioned, organic search traffic on average can make upwards of 30% of most website traffic, and Google makes this a constant moving target to optimize. As a result, we find ourselves doing this a lot for our clients because Google algorithm updates occur without warning. They happen several times throughout the course of a year, and they're impacting everyone on Google search, some more than others. In the case of these algo updates, there are always winners and there are always losers. Our approach is to take actual performance data from our clients based on their business structure and essentially look at every available segment to measure if any change in performance has occurred with statistical significance in order to uncover where the impacts were felt and how far they go. So let me ask you something. What kinds of marketplace, political, social, or environmental events are having a measurable impact on your business? Actually, I want to take a step back here for a second. We've been tossing around this term event a lot, and for good reason. An event can be 100 different things to 100 different people. The same goes for the slices of your business and the metrics that are important to you. So going back to our generic digital landscape here, in the case of testing, we're looking for a needle in a haystack, but depending on how large your business is, we could be looking for thousands of needles within thousands of haystacks. Sticking with the algorithm update scenario, let's say, again, your website is impacted like the above chart here. Maybe overall at the top level, the website actually benefited from Google's change, and therefore your entire website has actually improved. Neat. But as we peel back the layers and we start looking at all the lower categories, for instance, we can find that at some levels you were actually negatively impacted, and we'll need to adjust SEO strategy or perhaps the content on your site to get back what was lost, like we're seeing with category 3 in this instance. Pacific's Diagnostic can help you analyze and uncover the impacts from the top down on your website and brand. This is something we've been applying to each of our clients based on their business structures. We're dealing with a variety of different clients that operate in a number of different spaces, clients that are as massive and worldwide, such as Expedia Group, for instance, including all of their brands, but also clients that operate nationwide through physical facilities such as CubeSmart. So I want to show you another visual based on a real diagnostic report we did on behalf of one of our larger clients. This is actually a summary visual based on the impacts from one of Google's algorithm updates from earlier this year. Just to break down this chart, each of these bubbles represents a business segment. The size of the bubble is determined by the volume of traffic received on average daily. The x-axis, which is labeled with the conversion rate impact from -20 up to +20, this shows the relative impact of the conversion rate from post the Google algorithm update. And the y-axis is representative of the relative effect to traffic, again, from -20 to +20 in this instance. Just to help kind of normalize the performance of this, ideally, you want to have large circles in the upper right quadrant of this chart. This actually would demonstrate business segments that showed a significant increase to both conversion rate and to traffic. So in this instance, this client's business is simply massive. It's structured based on multiple brands across dozens of points of sale with, split into several segments, which are then broken down into dozens of other page types, viewed by and consumed across 4 different device aggregations, including desktop, mobile, tablet, and then all devices combined. So just to give you just a sheer number for the scale of this analysis, this brought the total number of segments to approximately 14,000 to analyze. So our approach is to always start with traffic first, just to help diagnose where the impacts were felt. We would also run the analysis against multiple secondary metrics to understand more of the why behind these impacts and make recommendations to guide strategy in the wake of this event. It's one thing to be able to run this analysis at scale, which is cool, but it's another to help guide faster insights despite having a wide-scale event like this take place. So our methodology is also prescriptive in nature, helping business users be able to determine what should or should not be paid attention to across the entire operation based on what is of value to you. Perhaps you only want to focus on pages that fall within a certain threshold of revenue or pages that drive higher conversion rates. We can customize the outputs of this to make it easier to uncover your business pain points in the wake of an event that is outside of your control to help you get back on track faster. So going back to our 14,000 test reads, obviously you're seeing a lot less dots on this than the previous chart. That's because we've reduced this down to only the results that actually had statistical significance in this case. This actually reduced it from, based on those 14,000 test reads I was talking about, this actually reduced it down to determine that only 38% of those had come back with statistical significance, making it a lot easier to reconcile these impacts faster. And then finally, Filtering this one step further, we actually reduced this down to business segments with traffic volume of 10,000 visitors or more on average daily. And in this instance, to interpret the bottom line impact of this this entire business, segments in the upper right had showed improvement across the board, recording improvements in both traffic and conversion rate. However, segments to the left of across the horizontal axis at 0% actually had a negative impact to conversion rate, but based on the quadrants they fall into, actually helps us to analyze two different potential causes to understand why conversion rate had dropped. So business segments in the top left showed a significant lift in traffic, but having a significant decline in conversion rate suggests that an improvement is needed for the user experience for those that are still coming to your site. Meanwhile, everything in the lower left quadrant shows a drop in conversion rate, which is most likely linked to the drop in traffic overall. Now, I should add, this isn't just something used to uncover where things are going wrong within your business. Causal impact at scale can actually be leveraged to find that next wave you didn't know was out there. Applying this same method to something, let's say like search keywords, can be used to uncover a new trend faster than your competitors, giving you a boost in the market, or applying it to followed hashtags on social media can allow you to find that audience you didn't know existed. And for our final application, we'll be talking briefly about how leveraging the predictive component of causal impact can be used to forecast what the future could hold for your business's performance. So traditionally, forecasting is either conducted by business users guessing what the future may hold, or by finance telling us what they want it to be. What Pacific does is it leverages the data science component from causal impact to establish statistically driven projections as the basis for more accurate forecasting. So here's an example we applied back in 2019 to one of our clients to help project what their traffic performance was projected to look like. We built this forecast again, this was back in 2019 when we had built this. So using all of 2018 to set in our seasonality performance, we then used the data from January to May at this point to predict what June through December would look like with confidence. And now I want to ask you a question to everyone that's currently working with an agency. Something just to kind of pose as a challenge to them, but ask them to predict the impact they will have on your business in the next year, but then tell them to prove it. This is exactly what Hotwire did to us when we began working with them to improve their traffic across their hotel, flights, and car rental lines of business. Using our proprietary methodology of forecasting the impact of SEO improvement, we projected we could improve performance of a particular segment by 27% above their current trajectory. After implementing a number of recommendations from our SEO team, we then used causal impact in a pre-post setting relative to when Pacific began working with Hotwire to measure the change in performance and actually surpass that original 27% forecasted improvement to increase traffic by 34%. Neat. And of course, most recently with the events that we're dealing with today because of COVID-19, we've been pulling what I've been describing as the trifecta of combining all three of these applications to help gain some insight over the current crisis we're dealing with right now. It's one thing to measure simply who was impacted and by how much in a pre-post setting, but by utilizing that same method at scale, like with our diagnostic approach, and looking ahead in the long term, we're able to begin measuring some signs of potential recovery from the COVID crisis per our clients' performances. Specifically, what we're doing is comparing actual metrics to the prediction of what performance would have been like had COVID-19 not taken place. And then we use the variance of these two trends to help answer questions such as what was the impact? It's safe to say that there have been wide-scale declines across the board for the majority of us. But we've also helped answer whether the bottom of that decline has been reached. We've also determined how long did that bottom last. In this case, some regions are actually on the rise today. And by comparing the variance between actuals and the prediction, we can quantify any recorded improvements as signs of recovery. And then lastly, what we're still monitoring and working on is how long it will take to return to pre-COVID-19 performance. But in our applications, we have used this to identify that the worst of the situation is behind a number of markets.
Thanks, Eric. We went through a lot, and we went through it fast. So make sure that you answer any questions that have come up in the Q&A and the comments, and we basically will have definite time for us to cover your questions today, or be able to coordinate a time if you really have some in-depth questions that you want to cover.
Perfect.
So,
I'm here, Josh. So chiming in, a couple of questions came through while you guys were presenting, so I'd like to start with those. And then as Josh mentioned, please enter any questions that you may have in the Q&A box. So we'll go ahead and start. The first one is, how does causal impact or this concept work if I'm already working with Pacific? How would I apply this to my business?
So I'll field this one. If you're already working with Pacific, this is already being used on behalf of your business. This is our standard method for understanding the impact of events. And again, going back to the general term, that event could be platform migrations, it could be an algo update, or it could be the testing that we do on a day-to-day basis. We do have this applied across all of our clients, and that's across all channels as well as the different types of metrics that they're measuring.
Great. Okay, next question. My team is already conducting pre-post analysis using linear regression. How would this differ from what we're already doing?
Eric, do you want to take this one?
Sure. That's actually a very good question. So for one thing, part of us adopting this methodology, basically we ended up comparing causal impact to a linear regression model rather. And in vetting this process, we determined that causal impact is actually a lot more flexible in comparison to a linear model, just mainly because it takes into account current trajectory, but also joins that with seasonality. So it actually gives you a more realistic view of your performance instead of a very stagnant before and after analysis.
Great. The next question is regarding measurement of campaigns that are non-traditionally digital. So as a brand manager, how can this be used to measure an out-of-home or traditional media brand campaign?
I can field this one. That's definitely the unique challenge and a great application within causal impact methodology, because you often have that the challenge here is deciding what metrics, really simply what metric is going to be the indicator of success, and not being able to hold out within that market is the challenge that this methodology solves for. And this is actually where we would recommend using what we've referred to as that Pseudo AB Test, where you can leverage a sister market to your primary market for the campaign to as a additional control. And you can use this methodology of causal impact to analyze whether or not the performance following the campaign had positive impact, and determine if that secondary market had maintained no impact during that same time frame.
Okay, great. Another one that just came in, you talk a lot about applying to organic search and organic data. Can causal impact also be applied to paid search or other digital channels? If so, what does that look like?
I'm going to field this one, because this is the challenge that I've been facing in pretty much ever since I've been in the paid search marketing space. I think that the primary application that I like this for paid search is the question that every CEO and CMO is going to ask their search marketing team: why are we bidding on our brand? And that question is a constant one. There's a lot of moving parts. But in this specific scenario, you do have the ability to measure the impact on your holistic search performance, combining SEO and paid, to determine not just if you gained or lost by changing that tactic, but also give you the exact, estimated impact of that behavior. I think there's definitely instances where we will see that taking that tactic will not have a negative impact on business. And in highly competitive markets, you will see that you have a challenge in that space. And this can be applied across any instance where you are running campaigns, and whether it be in the digital space. I think this is an excellent application for broad reach display campaigns where you have other additional challenges in measurement. A good example of that is within TurboTax, that they are so massive in their targeting that they are hitting all the audiences that are out there, and that it's impossible to actually have a holdout. So leveraging this type of analysis can be applied across other digital tactics.
Awesome, thank you. I believe those are all the questions that came in during the session. So that's it for the QA component. I believe, were there a couple of quick takeaways, Josh, on the next slide?
Yes.
Great.
So as we did cover a lot on this, I think the most important takeaways that I wanted to make sure that you carried with you. This methodology and the work that we do with our clients is it lowers that barrier of applying sophisticated data science and allows those insights to be put into the hands of the business users far quicker than if you're working with a traditional data science team, because all of the insights are driven by your inputs, and your inputs are based on what you need as a business leader. This is a proven approach. We've seen this applied across all of our clients in a variety of applications. The examples that we shared shows that it can be applied within other areas, and this is something that we have validated against other methodologies, and we find that this methodology at scale really helps you get those answers in the business user's hands faster. And the important aspect of this is if you have data over time, this can be applied to help you get insights on your performance. And that forecasting side was the one that I was the most excited about when I first heard about this capability, is that you can leverage the modeling that's built into this, so you can start your forecasting from a more accurate projection based on your trajectory and your seasonality. And I think that's tremendously important, because especially in the challenges that we all face in the organic search space, where Google is constantly shrinking that opportunity for your website to rank organically, you may actually be finding that you're having an uphill battle, and your finance team won't understand this, and they may still be putting on that 15 to 20% forecast on your channel. And this allows you to have that information to go into the conversation and help emphasize setting proper expectations.
Great. Well, we want to thank everybody for attending today, and just wanted to cover a few quick next steps for you. As a next step, we're going to be sending out a recording of the webinar to everybody who attended today. And then also to try to make this as valuable as possible. I know Josh and Eric both mentioned this is a really meaty subject. It's got a lot of applications, so it might take you a minute or two to wrap your head around it, and you probably will have some follow-up questions from what we discussed today. So we're offering a free 30-minute consultation to anybody who'd like to jump on the phone, learn a little bit more about this subject or how to apply it. Or if you have any other questions about your marketing programs in light of the COVID-19 crisis, we've been working with our own clients to move into a stabilization recovery process with their businesses. So we can definitely help you with the same thing. I would love to talk to you, and our contact info will be here in this recording that we're going to send to you. But I just want to say thank you everyone again for attending, and thanks Josh and Eric for a great presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thanks, everybody.
Take care, everybody.